This one's true.
You know, it's difficult to imagine how we ever managed to survive without one of these.
I don't think I could last more than 5 minutes without mine.
I think I can go a bit longer than that, Kevin, but, you know, even so, I amaze myself with just how much I do use my mobile telephone. And I think, like a lot of people, that has meant that I've started to wonder about the invisible waves that they give off and whether or not they really could be doing us any harm. But is that fear just another bit of old junk that we should consign to the dustbin of history, along with our Motorola Dynatacs and original Nokia 3310s? Well, Steve Brown has been out to investigate.
Meet the Knights from Greater Manchester. Mum Ashley and her 3 children, 12-year-old Rio, his younger brother Romain and 2-year-old Ramiz, are a thoroughly modern family. And like most others in Britain these days, they all love their mobile phones.
I use my mobile phone for Instagram, texting, calling, just to talk with my friends. I use it for just playing games and watching videos on YouTube.
Even little Ramiz wants to get in on the action. But Ashley is increasingly anxious about what these high-tech gadgets might be emitting and what they could be doing to her brood.
I do worry about the effects that it could be having on us, not only mentally but physically as well. The changes that could be happening with the brain waves. There's been reports of people suffering from different cancers because of them.
Worries about what mobile phones might be doing to us are nothing new.
Cast your mind back to the 1990s when mobile phones really started to take off. There was a flurry of headlines suggesting that the radiation emitted by these new handheld devices could be behind the sudden rise in brain tumours.
But scientific studies at the time couldn't find any evidence that it was mobile phones causing the problems, so things went silent.
But it's all started up again, and there's a new surge of headlines saying that we were wrong to ignore the studies and that mobile phones do emit a toxic radiation, and we've been exposing ourselves to it now for over 20 years.
These headlines make for a startling read, as they link a whole range of health problems with the emissions of radio frequencies from our mobile phones. They issue dire warnings about problems ranging from cancer to memory loss and even infertility. But at the same time, other publications, including ones coming from the NHS, are telling us that there is still no evidence to suggest that mobile phones can cause harm, and they definitely don't cause cancer.
It's hard to know just who to believe. Do we really need to protect ourselves against devices that have become so integral to our everyday lives?
Mobile phones do emit radio frequency waves, a form of electromagnetic radiation. And back in Greater Manchester, these invisible emissions have got Ashley so worried about her phone and other household devices, she's initiated a series of precautions.
We have a Wi-Fi box. When it's not in use, it's just turned off. The laptop's the same. When they're not in use, they're turned off. At night, when we go to bed, we put the phones on either airplane mode or we just turn them off.
Not satisfied she's done enough to reduce the risk, Ashley has gone one step further and started looking into crystals as a way to help.
I don't think it does any harm, even if someone came from a scientific background and said, actually, these crystals don't do anything. I'd think, well, for me, maybe it's psychological that they're doing something, so it's still a benefit.
Ashley is hoping that the crystals will reduce any harmful emissions, but she admits that she's still confused.
It was really difficult to know what's the truth, especially if you're not from a scientific background. How do you understand the information that's being presented?
To get to the bottom of Ashley's worries, we've sent her a visitor, Yolanda O'Heaney, a biophysicist specialising in brain activity.
Come in.
Thank you. So tell me what your concerns are about mobile phones.
My biggest concern is what damage they're doing to our body, especially our brains. I'm worried that it is the signals that are being given off from the phones, like the Wi-Fi signals.
Yeah, well, I suppose you're right in that there are signals coming from the mobile phones, and they're specifically radio frequency waves, but they're just part of the electromagnetic radiation, and so that's actually all around us.
It all sounds so scary. That is just, it's unavoidable, it's everywhere you go.
To help put Ashley's fears to rest, Yolanda needs to understand them better, so she's got a challenge for her. Yolanda's got a set of stickers and she wants Ashley to rate the appliances in her home as to whether she thinks they're low, medium or high risk when it comes to radiation emissions.
I'm guessing that this smart meter is quite low. I think the Wi-Fi box is definitely going to be high and medium for the PlayStations. And I think the laptop is probably quite high. And my mobile, I think, is definitely high. I think I'm done.
Time for Yolanda to reveal the truth. Let's start with Ashley's main worry, her mobile phone.
Okay, so it does give off some radiation, but it's a radio frequency wave, so we can change this high to perhaps a medium.
Right. That's quite shocking. I really thought that would be a lot higher.
And the reason it's a lower risk than Ashley thought is to do with the exact type of electromagnetic radiation involved. There are lots of different levels of radiation, ranging from ionising at one end of the scale to non-ionising at the other.
So at one side of the spectrum, there's this ionising radiation, so it's very high energy, high frequency waves. X-ray is a common example of ionising radiation, so people are told to keep behind the LED screens because it can damage the cells within our body.
Yolanda says in contrast, non-ionising radiation, which is what Ashley's phone and other household devices emit, is very low power, low frequency and mostly passes through the cells in the body.
It doesn't do any damage to the cells. I can actually say that probably a higher source of more harmful radiation would be from your window here.
Really?
Yeah. The sun gives off all of these different types of radiation, so the light from the sun would be much more damaging than these devices.
So you believe it would be much worse for me to be sunbathing without sunscreen in Barbados?
Yeah, exactly. It would be so
Than
much
using all of
worse
these devices.
than even using 10 mobile phones at the same time.
Right.
The cells in your body are not going to be harmed by this.
Hopefully, Yolanda's been able to put Ashley's mind at ease. In the meantime, I'm meeting with Professor Malcolm Sperrin.
Good to see you too.
Director of Medical Physics at Oxford University Hospitals, to find out if those headlines that have got Ashley so worried have any substance at all.
Some of these headlines are startling, aren't they? You've got this here, for example, mobile phones could cause cancer and memory loss. Where do we start with something like that?
Well, you'll find lots of headlines like this. It's really interesting, this, though, because what this article's not saying is that it does cause cancer. What it's saying is that it could cause cancer. And what you'll find very often in these studies, they'll expose mice or some other species to very, very, very high levels of this electromagnetic field, and they will see an effect. But it's very difficult to reliably interpret this in terms of what you will find in an average human. There's no evidence that suggests that you should worry, but people do worry, and I think that's entirely right and proper.
But we do know there's been a 34% rise in the number of brain tumours since the early 90s. If that's got nothing to do with mobile phones, I want to know what could be causing it.
The advances in how we can diagnose brain cancers have also improved, so that will make it look as if we are seeing more brain cancers.
I see. So finding brain cancers has become easier, quicker, we're finding them earlier, and we're finding more different types.
Yes, that's right.
So there's no evidence that the radio frequencies emitted from our mobile phones cause illness in human beings. To keep it that way, the EU has set a limit on the levels of emissions that are allowed.
I've come to Fareham in Hampshire And this building behind me is one of just 4 of the UK's official laboratories where mobile phones must come for testing before they go on sale in the UK. And today I've been given exclusive access to see how it's done.
Scientist Steve is the man with the machine. It's his job to test mobile phone radio frequency emissions, and Malcolm's joining me to get the lowdown on this high-tech bit of kit.
Well, this all looks a little bit futuristic. What on earth am I looking at here?
It's a human-like mannequin. So in this case, we're simulating the human head.
And it's looking at the cause and effects of mobile phones.
In a nutshell, you've got it.
The high-tech machine is a precision scanner that can detect even the smallest emission from a mobile phone.
OK, so shall we see this bad boy in action? I'm excited to see what happens.
The brown liquid is a special mixture of oils which respond to radiation in the same way that the human brain does. Out of sight from us, the phone is placed by the mannequin's head, and a probe in the liquid will check the radiation coming from its antenna. The radiation measurements are called the SAR, which stands for specific absorption rate, and the different colours mean different levels of radiation being absorbed. After 20 minutes of radiation emission, we're done.
So the tests are all done, Steve. What is it we're looking at here now?
So we can see the distribution of the SAR. It's more intense directly over to the antenna where it's yellow.
And then I suppose those colours, as it's coming away from that centre and where the antenna is showing that the different colours is less and less and less being absorbed.
Absolutely.
All these colours might look worrying, but today's test, which would be repeated multiple times with any new phone, is well within the internationally agreed limits on radiation.
If it falls above that, then it can't be sold and needs to go back for redesign. If it falls below that, it can be considered to go further forward as one of many steps towards a sale of that device.
So because the radiation emitted from mobile phones and Wi-Fi routers is the very weak non-ionising kind, there is no evidence to suggest we're in danger of developing any health problems from it. But back in Manchester, what about those crystals that Ashley was hoping would protect her and her family from harmful radiation?
Certainly the crystals are doing no harm by being here, but I don't think that there's much scientific evidence that the crystals will absorb the signal.
I really do value the information that you've given me today because I have been so worried about these things, and now I know that I can be less worried about it. So thank you for that.
Well, I tell you, it's good to know I don't have to have any more sleepless nights about the amount of sleep I actually do get, and that is quite a relief. But I think it's probably also good to know that if you feel rested, regardless of actually how many hours you've slept, it sounds as if that's probably going to be enough too.
Yeah, that is great news. Mind you, I'm glad it was you doing those tests and not me. I don't think I could have done it, however much rest I'd had the night before. And great to know I don't have to worry about the radiation from my mobile phone too. I mean, that is one myth, Angela, that just doesn't seem to be going away.
No, it's with us all the time, isn't it? But I have to say, sadly, that is all we have time for today. Until the next time, though, keep well, and we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.